India and Pakistan just had their worst military confrontation in decades.
India would not be deterred by threats of nuclear blackmail.
Pakistan just wanted to tell the Indians and the world that, look, we have been invaded. We reserve the right to respond.
While the fragile ceasefire holds, certain developments could tip it back over the edge.
The Waters Treaty is the one to watch. I foresee a possibility of armed hostilities over this.
If you have pro-war sentiment dominating, then it'll only take a spark for this to happen again.
How will this episode change India-Pakistan relations?
इंशाल्लाह इस मुल्क की इंशाल्लाह अपने खून और अपने सरों से दिफा करेंगे हम.
And how likely is fighting to flare up again?
Whenever the government desires that we need to hit Pakistan again, it's not going to take more than 45 minutes for destruction and ruin to hit Pakistan's cities.
For weeks, Ashan Yaduvedi looked forward to her family vacation. She had just gotten married to her husband, Shubham Duvedi, in February. This was the first holiday for both sides of the family since their wedding festivities.
We were talking where to go, and suddenly we realized that Kashmir is safe now. So all of us decided that it's beautiful. Because it is beautiful. It is known as the heaven on earth.
After a tiring morning on a pony ride through the scenic Baisaran Valley, the family relaxed and chatted at a rest stop.
While the conversation was going on, somebody from back approached. And the guy was in a very normal clothes. So he came and he straight away asked, "Are you Hindu? Are you Muslim?" So firstly, we couldn't understand what he's trying to say. Then he again asked, "Are you Hindu? Are you Muslim? If you're Muslim, read Kalma." We are Hindus. We do not know Kalma. The moment he heard Hindu, he shot him. And this was the first shot.
This was the beginning of a terror attack in Pahalgam in India-controlled Kashmir. 5 men armed with machine guns fired at tourists. 26 people were killed. From what we now know, Shubham Duvedi was the first victim.
I cannot take that image out of my head. And I do not know that will I ever be able to take it out of my head. We were sitting together. He was here next to me. When he shot him, in seconds he fell and he was gone. It was still shaking him and was trying to wake him up. My younger sister, she saw everything happening. She came running towards me. She had in her mind that they're going to kill us also. They're going to kill Mummy, they're going to kill her, they're going to kill everybody. So she dragged me, and then she dragged me out of the gate.
In the weeks that followed, the Pahalgam terror attack would spark the fiercest exchange of military action between India and Pakistan in decades.
So it's been an unwritten rule since both countries declared their nuclear weapons in 1998 that they will control escalation, so they won't engage in conventional warfare. And this time, Indian attacks were not only within Pakistan administered Kashmir, it was within parts of Pakistan, Punjab as well. So it went further in, and also the period of hostilities lasted longer than before.
Kashmir is at the heart of a decades-long conflict between India and Pakistan. When the South Asian nations gained independence from British rule in 1947, there were around 562 princely states in the British Raj, which were governed by local rulers. These states were given the choice to join India or Pakistan or remain independent. The local ruler of Kashmir, Hari Singh, initially considered independence. But in October 1947, he cast in with India in exchange for help to quell a local uprising and invasion from Pashtun tribes. As a result, fighting broke out between Pakistan forces and the Indian army. Thousands of soldiers and civilians died. India later asked the United Nations to intervene. The UN proposed a plebiscite to settle the status of Kashmir. This never occurred, as both sides refused to withdraw their forces. India and Pakistan would continue to clash over the Kashmir issue in the following decades. After the Indo-Pakistani War of 1971, the Simla Agreement to end the hostilities was signed between the neighbours. A line of control was established where part of Kashmir would be under Indian administration and a part under Pakistani control, a status that remains to this day. Presently, India controls about 55%, Pakistan about 30%, China holds about 15 to 20%.
So the issue of Kashmir, it sits at the heart of every conflict between India and Pakistan.
Kashmir was the background of several incursions by militants and terrorists on Indian soil. These include the 2008 Mumbai attack, a 2016 assault on an Indian Army outpost at Uri, and a 2019 suicide bombing in Pulwama district, which killed 46 Indian police. After the latter two incidences, the Indian military carried out strikes on what it called terror sites in Pakistan-administered Kashmir.
So in 2016, there was what the Indians label a cross-border retaliation. There it was on a lower scale. 2019 was the first time that Indian and Pakistani planes crossed the line of control since 1971, bombed areas in each other's parts where they administered.
But unlike the assaults in 2016 and 2019, which targeted security personnel, India's reaction to the Pahalgam terror attack was different.
I think this was the most heinous and barbaric attack that we have had in India in a very long time. In fact, I cannot recall after the 2008 Mumbai terror attacks whether civilians have been butchered in this fashion. And to segregate people on the basis of religion, for them to prove their religion in the most crude way possible, and then to gun them down in front of their family members, I do not think any other terrorist attack in India could match the level of barbarity and heinousness that the Pahalgam massacre did.
It kind of resonated across India because there was this unbelievable that you could pick up tourists who are unarmed, separate the women, kill the men, and there are children watching. What kind of a horrific person does that?
A group called the Resistance Front, or TRF, claimed, then later denied responsibility for Pahalgam. TRF is believed to be an offshoot of Lashkar-e-Taiba, a UN-designated terror group. India had often blamed the Pakistani state for harboring and supporting terrorists. It would do so again quickly after Pahalgam.
If you take the history of terrorism in this century alone, India has collected very robust dossiers making very clear the connections between the terrorists and their handlers in Pakistan and the connections with the Pakistani state.
There has been a history of elements of the Pakistani state being supportive of terrorist groups. I think this is something that even Pakistani officials in the past have admitted to. So that's really a track record. Again, it might be contested by Pakistan, but I think for the Indians, they had enough intelligence to make the claim that this had the support of parts of the Pakistani establishment.
Pakistan has consistently denied any links to terror groups.
Pakistan, as a policy, has always condemned and will continue to condemn terrorism in all its form and manifestations. So Pakistan totally rejects any linkage to that attack.
We don't know who carried out the Pahalgam incident. India squarely blamed it on Pakistan within minutes, but it totally altogether overlooked and excluded the possibility of a third generation locally radicalized youth. We had seen the example of youth from Europe, from America, attracted to ISIS, fighting in Yemen, fighting in Iraq. So why can't it happen in Kashmir?
Nonetheless, on May 7th, India responded. It launched Operation Sindoor in retaliation for the Pahalgam attack.
Our position was very clear from the beginning. This was not an attack on Pakistan military. This was not an attack on Pakistan society. This was not an attack on the Pakistani polity. This was an attack purely and simply on the terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan. And we made that clear on the very first day, on the 7th of May, when our cruise missiles took out 21 terror sites in Pakistan at 9 locations.
Thousands living on both sides of the line of control fled. On the Pakistani side, Raja Sagia took refuge in Muzaffarabad, the capital of Azad Kashmir.
मैं LOC चलियाना का रिहायशी हूँ। हमारे और इंडिया के दरमियान इस तरह सिर्फ एक दरिया का फासला है। इस तरफ हमें और सामने इंडिया हमारे। तो आजकल हमें ये जो धमकियाँ मिल रही हैं इससे बहुत मुश्किलात हैं, बहुत हम मुश्किल में हैं। लेकिन जिस टाइम फायरिंग होती है तो बहुत खौफनाक मनाज़र होते हैं। बच्चे, बूढ़े, औरतें यदि खौफनाक होते हैं, डर जाते हैं, तो बड़ी मुश्किल से जाके हम मोर्चों में छुपते हैं। जब फायरिंग होती है बहुत खौफनाक मनाज़र होते हैं वहाँ पे।
Well, I think India very clearly violated the Pakistani sovereignty, and it clearly, what it did was nothing short of a declaration of war for 2 running days, striking deep into the heart of Pakistan. They attacked 3 air bases in Pakistan, in Peshawar, in Rawalpindi, and down in the south somewhere. And that was a red line. That gave Pakistan enough opportunity, enough justification for launching its reply.
On the night of May 7th into May 8th, Pakistan countered with missiles, artillery, and drone strikes. India retaliated by hitting Pakistani air defense systems and air bases. It also activated its own drone fleet.
We launched the attacks against terrorist camps, waited. Then they started their firing across the border. Then we took it to the next level, which was to teach the Pakistan army that we can hit you.
This was the first time that since, I think since 71, that Pakistani air bases were hit. There was a fear, firstly, that this will then invite even larger retaliatory response from Pakistan. Number 2, one of the air bases that was hit was not very far from where Pakistan apparently stores some of its nuclear arsenal. And so that again was significant. There was a concern, especially within Pakistan, that India was trying to obliterate, take away Pakistan's nuclear arsenal, and so that may have possibly involved a nuclear response.
There were initial reports that Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif convened the nuclear body on 10th of May, something the Pakistanis have since refuted. Yet, as the 2 nuclear powers inched towards all-out war, a breakthrough on the evening of the 10th, both countries announced a ceasefire.
The ceasefire was announced between the 2 states, but I think you will know that the line of control continues to be highly militarized right now. There's persistent firing. On an everyday basis, Kashmir and Kashmiris on the line of control are always caught in the crossfire.
But the ceasefire is not the end of the story. Developments from this confrontation have deeply soured the relationship between India and Pakistan, putting a 65-year-old water-sharing agreement at risk. About 50 kilometers outside of Lahore, in the agricultural region of Gujranwala, Dr. Zafar Riaz Manej surveys his 20 hectares of crops.
I have been growing organic vegetables, wheat and rice. So Gujranwala division is known for basmati rice, which will find aromatic basmati rice from Pakistan and North America, in Europe, in Africa, wherever you go on the globe. And for rice, you need a lot more water. Some sources claim that to produce 1 kilogram of rice, volume-wise, you are looking from 3,000 liter to 5,000 liter of water, which is, wow, very big a number.
Agriculture is the largest contributor to Pakistan's economy, accounting for about a quarter of its GDP. But in the aftermath of the recent India-Pakistan conflict, much of the sector could be put in a chokehold.
Pakistan heavily relying on two crops, rice export along with the cotton. The story doesn't end with the rice. Cotton requires much more water than rice. And the shortage of water will hamper heavily the $18-20 billion worth of textile export from Pakistan.
Though India and Pakistan have reached a ceasefire, the fallout from the Pahalgam terrorist attack lingers. One day after the assault, on April 23rd, India suspended the Indus Waters Treaty.
The Indus Waters Treaty of 1960 will be held in abeyance with immediate effect until Pakistan credibly and irrevocably abjures its support for cross-border terrorism.
The Indus Waters Treaty is a water distribution agreement signed between India and Pakistan in 1960, negotiated with the help of the World Bank. The Indus River is considered Pakistan's most important waterway. About 80% of the country's farms depend on it. The Indus is fed by 5 tributaries: Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Beas, and the Sutlej rivers, which flow through India. Under the Indus Waters Treaty, Pakistan received unrestricted use of the western rivers, which India is obligated to let flow. The western rivers are the Indus, the Jhelum, and the Chenab. In previous conflicts, the treaty was left untouched. By suspending the agreement for the first time ever, India could be signaling an intent to restrict flows of the Indus.
पहले भारत के हक का पानी भी बाहर जा रहा था। अब भारत का पानी भारत के हक में बहेगा। भारत के हक में रुकेगा और भारत के ही काम आएगा। साथियों, अक्सर लोग इस बात को दोहराते हैं।
See, we didn't really want to suspend the Indus Water Treaty because that will hit the farmers. You know, in Pakistan, our war is not with the people of Pakistan.
Waters Treaty particularly has been functioning for 65 years. It has survived 3 wars, it has survived multiple terrorist attacks, and yet it was not abandoned. But I think this was the last act that broke the treaty's back.
For now at least, India cannot simply turn off the tap. It does not have the requisite infrastructure on the western rivers to restrict water flow completely.
At this point in time, the Indians don't have the capability to store that amount of water on their side. Whether they are making plans to do it very soon, to build capabilities, is possible. Because the Indians want to have more and more levers against Pakistan when it comes to them addressing what they see as Pakistani-aided terrorist acts in India.
Pakistanis protested the suspension. The irrigation minister of Punjab province said Pakistan had noticed irregular flows of the Indus since, pointing fingers at India. With the summer months approaching, these developments worried Dr. Manoj.
I won't be able to irrigate my fields as per required by the crop. So what will happen? I will take a big hit on my production, and my country will take a big hit on its exports.
Some observers feel that the treaty suspension is a bargaining tactic. For years, India has sought to renegotiate the water treaty with Pakistan.
This is an old treaty. It's one of the most stupid treaties in the world. There's no revision clause.
Within the treaty, there are certain provisions that if the situation materially changes, and it has materially changed since 1960, both in terms of technology, both in terms of climate change, and certainly in terms of the behavior of Pakistan deploying terrorism. So for all these reasons, it would be something where I suspect that India will be willing to ask Pakistan to negotiate, but negotiate keeping in mind a certain change in its behavior, that talks and terror don't go together, that trade and terror don't go together, and now even water and terror won't go together.
Together with the suspension of the Indus Waters Treaty, India downgraded relations with its western neighbour. The main land border between India and Pakistan was shut. Visas of Pakistani nationals were revoked from the 27th of April. All medical visas became invalid from the 29th. This left Pakistani credit analyst Shahid Ali in a bind.
मेरे 2 बच्चे हैं जिनकी हार्ट का प्रॉब्लम है और उनकी सर्जरी जो है पाकिस्तान में कोई भी सर्जन रेडी नहीं करने के लिए को मैंने इंडिया ट्रैवल किया था। पहलगाम इंसिडेंट हो गया, इसके बाद इंडियन गवर्नमेंट ने अनाउंस किया कि 48 आवर्स में जो है सारे वीज़ा कैंसिल हैं और वो रिटर्न हो रहे हैं। फिर वहाँ से जो एडमिन है और डॉक्टर से उन्होंने कोशिश की कि हम इनकी सर्जरी जो है जल्दी कर लें, और उन्होंने जो है 21 की जगह डॉक्टर शामीर जो हैं उन्होंने अपनी दूसरी सर्जरी कैंसिल करके 24 और 25 को मेरी प्लान कर दी। लेकिन वहाँ पे भी इंडियन हुकाम ने उनको कहा कि नहीं आप इनकी सर्जरी करेंगे फिर इनका यहाँ पे इसके बढ़ जाएगा, क्योंकि आफ्टर सर्जरी भी अगर इसके मिनिमम है जो है 10 डेज़ का उन्होंने कहा कि ICU और कुछ देर का रहना पड़ता है। तो उस बिहार पे उन्होंने कहा कि नहीं आप इसको वापसी भेजेंगे। जी मैं इस पे अब आपको बयान नहीं कर सकता, जाहिर सी बात है मेरी बच्चों का मामला है। जितना मैंने स्ट्रगल की को मेरी जो वाइफ है उन्होंने को बहुत जी मेरा ये उनसे अपील है कि आप कभी भी जंग की न जाएं, आप बजाय इसके कि आम लोगों की ज़िंदगी को सफ़र करें, आप एक्सट्रीमिस्ट को पकड़ें और उनको कैफर किरदार तक पहुँचाएँ।
In response, Pakistan closed off its airspace to Indian commercial planes. It also stopped all trade, including any that passes through a third country.
There was a lot of trade going through third countries, for instance, the UAE and other such places. But even that trade is now banned. So the trade in any case was not moving in large numbers, but whatever little trade there was has now also been stopped.
At present, all the restrictions applied by both sides remain in place, marking the lowest point in India-Pakistan relations in years. But perhaps the most significant development is the suspension of the water treaty, The Pakistani army chief has called it a red line.
This is not acceptable. This is not acceptable at all by me, by my fellow Pakistanis, because summer is the time when everyone needs water, not only for drinking, but also for their cultivation.
The Indus Waters Treaty is the one to watch, I think, because trade and people movement, that's on and off, has always been the case. Firstly, the Pakistanis will try to use diplomatic levers, convince other countries to lean on India. If that does not work, once you hit the summer months, which is soon, where water supply dries up, then there might be some pressure to do a kinetic attack. A lot of people have said water is an existential issue. People need it. It was a treaty and you refuse to abide by it, so we have to do what we have to do. And they will probably represent this as Pakistan's survival. Water is survival. So yeah, I foresee a possibility of armed hostilities over this.
For Ali, he holds out hope that things will calm sooner rather than later.
जाहिर सी बात है बच्चों के लिए मैं अपनी लिए मुझे जाना पड़ेगा अगर वहाँ पे होगा हालात सही होंगे तो ज़रूर मैं बच्चों की अगर ज़िंदगी का सवाल है तो मैं को बिल्कुल ज़रूर ट्रैवल करूँगा अपनी जान भी खतरे में डाल कर जा सकता हूँ क्योंकि बच्चों की ज़िंदगी का सवाल है
This recent conflict would also highlight how a cocktail of nationalism, religiosity and disinformation can add fuel to the fire. A dangerous mix should tensions flare once more. On the 7th of May, the day India launched Operation Sindoor, Pakistan announced it brought down 5 Indian jets. India initially refuted this, but would later admit to some loss of aircraft. But before long, this video, showing the plane being hit by surface-to-air missiles, circulated on social media in Pakistan. But there was one problem. The video is fake, likely taken from a video game.
And this is the official Pakistani position that we have downed Indian Rafales and here is the proof, and that proof is actually a video game. You know, Pakistanis may claim that, we hit this airbase and that airbase. They don't have one single satellite photo to back up their claim. In fact, all of it is Pakistani propaganda and information warfare.
While India and Pakistan exchanged tit-for-tat attacks, in the background, there was a different war going on. One focused on information.
This is what I call grey zone warfare. It's a very dangerous one. People will tweet anything and everything, some of it absolutely insane. I mean, talking of, us hitting nuclear sites. You cannot hit an underground facility in the Kirana Hills unless you use huge bunker busters. It can't be done. But it's all over the net.
As the conflict unfolded, both India and Pakistan made differing claims of their militaristic achievements. Meanwhile, falsehoods spread online, a serious challenge for political and military officials. For example, a fake story that the Indian Navy had hit Karachi went viral. But what's surprising was that disinformation wasn't only shared on social media. Mainstream outlets on both sides reported falsehoods as fact.
You see, the war in the 21st century is not just fought on the battlefield. It is also not now fought in the mind space of people on both sides and across the world. It is information warfare. You saw a huge amount of misinformation being presented. Even the Indian news channels, the private news channels were no better than the Pakistani ones.
This creates two problems. One is it creates pressures on political leaders to do more. That means to be less risk-averse. Right? Because there's domestic pressure, that's one. Number two, it creates disharmony within certain communities in that country, where if people are associated to be friendly or of a religious kin of what they think another country is, then chances are there might be some domestic discord within both these countries.
This time actually it was ordinary people online that were effectively cheering on their respective sides. If you have pro-war sentiment dominating, it won't take much It'll only take a spark for this to happen again.
While these narratives provide the spark, emotive forces such as religion and nationalism could add the fuel.
Pakistan has also claimed that India deliberately attacked religious sites. This is completely false again. I have made it clear that the targets were terrorist infrastructure, terrorist facilities, and locations connected clearly with incidents of cross-border terrorism into India.
It benefits certain constituencies who see both countries pattern along religious lines. It reinforces a narrative of the other country which represents a particular religion as evil.
Because of how they were carried out, many saw the Pahalgam terrorist attack as having a religious undertone.
They asked the religion and the faith of the victims and then they shot them point blank. These were execution-style killings and they meant to kill people.
India-administered Kashmir is majority Muslim, with about 68% of the population professing the faith. Hence, the Kashmir issue has been framed as a religious struggle in Pakistan. For example, when Delhi revoked India-administered Kashmir's semi-autonomous status in 2019 and brought it under direct control, Islamic parties in Pakistan marched in protest.
It's important to remember that prior to 1988, the Kashmir cause was not tinged by religious militancy. So, Kashmiri independence or Kashmiri liberation within India was largely led by secular forces like the Jammu Kashmir Liberation Front. So it's only after 88 where you see Pakistan's state policy becomes to support religious militancy in Kashmir, but of course they've never acknowledged it, they've never admitted it.
Also, just before this attack, there was a public statement by the Pakistani army chief, which was, I think, not very well received in India, where he called Kashmir the jugular vein of Pakistan and said that Hindus and Muslims in these two countries are two different civilizations, once again stoking the fires.
It is the 11th of May. A ceasefire had been declared. But still, many gathered in Peshawar, Pakistan. These are students from the madrasas, Islamic religious schools. Just a couple of days prior, Pakistan's defense minister said madrasa students will be Pakistan's second line of defense in the conflict with India. A call those gathered were keen to answer, including members of Jamiat Ulema-e-Islam, a fundamentalist political party.
हज़रत सबसे पहले तो हमारे ये मुल्क है, ये हम इसके साथ मोहब्बत करना ये हमारा ईमान का हिस्सा है और इसके बाद इसकी जो दिफा ये भी सबसे पहले पाक फ़ौज की ज़िम्मेदारी है, लेकिन जमीयत उलमा इस्लाम की क़ियादत कायदी जमीयत बयान दंगल वो असम्बली के फ्लोर पर भी कहा है और हर जगह वो कर रहा है कि ये जो पाकिस्तान का दिफा है ये हमारी ईमान का हिस्सा है और इंशाल्लाह हम पाक फ़ौज के जितने भी शोबे हैं, जितने भी चाहे वो बहरी है, चाहे वो अक्सर है, जो भी है उसके पुष्ट पर इंशाल्लाह मजबूत हम खड़े हैं। बॉर्डर पे तो क्या इंशाल्लाह इस मुल्क की एक एक इंच का इंशाल्लाह अपने खून और अपने सरों से दिफा करेंगे हम।
Religion is foundational to the Pakistan military. Its motto is Iman, Taqwa, Jihad fi Sabila, meaning faith, piety, struggle in the name of God.
Since the late 1970s, there's been an increasing trend for the Pakistan military to become more and more religious. The secular basis of the Pakistan military has been eroded, and the Pakistan army chief now is a product of that system. Right? He came through a madrasa system, and he's one of those cadre who has linked being a devout Muslim to being a good Pakistani. The Indian case is a bit more complex because since the coming to power in 2014 of the BJP, there have been elements within the party who have tried to represent India as a Hindu country. They have not always succeeded because In India's case, there's a deep secularism that runs throughout the country. But I think from the government's point of view, I don't think it fits their interest to represent this as a Hindu-Muslim conflict. The Indian state wants to represent this as a response to terrorism. That's it.
For Professor Asim Sajjad, how this episode of the Indian-Pakistan conflict played out leaves him worried about future confrontations.
It's a pretty pessimistic, outlook in terms of what could this mean. Again, it means a more and more militarized population, a population that is willing to forget all of its own problems and pin all the blame on the enemy, so to speak. Moving forward, the young people of the subcontinent, if they continue to be mobilized for these sorts of sort of hysterical or hyperbolic state nationalist conflicts, I'm not sure that anyone will ever get their head around to actually addressing what everyone shares, which is climate change or unemployment or economic hardship.
For now, as the ceasefire holds, how has the Pahalgam terrorist attack changed the character of India-Pakistan relations? Deep Kumar is the chief of Simbal Sekol village in the Indian state of Punjab. The community of 400 people lies several kilometers from India-administered Kashmir. It's also pressed right up along the international border between India and Pakistan. Though the village is on the front line of any outbreak in hostilities, the people here nonetheless wanted reprisal for Pahalgam.
देखो ਜਦੋਂ ਸੰਦੂਰ ਆਪਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਲਾਂਚ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਭਾਰਤ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੇ ਤਾਂ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾਤਰ ਤਾਂ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਦਿਨ ਚੜਿਆ ਇਹ ਰਾਤ ਨੂੰ ਹੋਇਆ ਜਦੋਂ ਦਿਨ ਚੜਿਆ ਸਵੇਰੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗਿਆ ਕੁਝ ਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ 'ਚ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਦੀ ਲਹਿਰ ਸੀਗੀ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸੈਲਾਨੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਬਰਬਰਤਾ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਉਹਦਾ ਭਾਰਤ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੇ ਮੂੰਹ ਤੋੜ ਜਵਾਬ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਇੱਕ ਤਰਫ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਮਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਆਂਦਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਹੁਣ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਥੋੜਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਆਸ਼ੀਆਨਾ ਛੱਡ ਕੇ ਦਾएं ਬਾएं ਜਾਣਾ ਪਏਗਾ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇਹਦਾ ਜਵਾਬ ਤੇ ਭਾਰਤ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਵੀ ਠੋਸ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਦੇਗੀ
After India's strike on terror strongholds on the 7th of May, the villagers witnessed Pakistan's drone retaliation.
ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਆਪਾਂ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਜੰਮੂ ਕਸ਼ਮੀਰ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਮਤਲਬ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਗਹਿਰਾਈ ਜਾਂ ਦੂਰੀ ਜਾਂ ਇਧਰ ਨੂੰ ਪਠਾਨਕੋਟ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਪਰ ਲੇਕਿਨ ਕਦੀ ਇਦਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਦੇਖੋ ਮਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਖੌਫ ਤਾਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਡਰੋਨ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਜਾਂ ਉਹਦੀ ਐਕਟੀਵਿਟੀ ਲੋਕ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਮਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੇ ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਦਾ ਇਹੀ ਖਿਆਲ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਇਹ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਅਟੈਕ ਕਰੇਗਾ ਜਾਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਿਤੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਕਰ ਦੇਵੇ ਪਰ ਲੇਕਿਨ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਚਿਹਰੇ ਤੇ ਖੌਫ ਤੇ ਨਜ਼ਰ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਹੈ
After the ceasefire was declared on May 10th, both India and Pakistan were quick to claim victory.
Well, I think facts speak for themselves. Pakistan claims to have shot down 5 Indian aircraft. India couldn't make the same plane, even about 1 aircraft. So I think this is a very clear indication as to who won and who lost.
We could have done tremendous damage to Pakistan, and we did. We could have done much more damage to Pakistan. So at a moment's notice, whenever the government desires that this is the time when we need to hit Pakistan again, it's not going to take more than 45 minutes for destruction and ruin to hit Pakistan's cities.
I think it's not surprising to me that both would then subsequently say, oh, we won. I think for me it doesn't feel like it's a very great victory for anyone because essentially what's happened is whether it's Modi or whether it's the hybrid regime in Pakistan, they've managed to successfully distract from whatever disaffection they were facing domestically by pointing their guns to the enemy.
One party that might have come out ahead is the Pakistani military. In recent years, the military establishment had lost popular support due to its clashes with former Prime Minister Imran Khan. Khan was the leader of the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf political party, and at one time, arguably Pakistan's most popular politician.
Imran Khan is in jail, and Imran Khan has taken on the military head-on. And the military's popularity has plummeted somewhat recently, representing this as a victory against, the Indians trying to bully Pakistan will give the military a boost.
So what it means is that I think that the military, or the establishment as we call it in this country, has come out strengthened, that some of the standard narratives about Pakistani nationalism, where India is the forever enemy, are sort of restored to their place. Conflicts between these two neighbors have never boded well for democracy. They've always been, in a sense, an excuse for the states to centralize power.
With the ceasefire in place, both countries continue with competing narratives around Pahalgam. Pakistan maintains it had nothing to do with the terror attack and has called for an independent investigation. India has rejected any such inquest.
Once Pakistan was blamed without any investigation, Pakistani Prime Minister offered credible, transparent and international verifiable investigations, to which India rejected.
From day one, Pakistan had been demanding evidence, and without evidence, they just assaulted Pakistan. And this is what weakened India's case also internationally.
We have given evidence to Pakistan in the past so many times. There is this plethora of evidence that we have against Pakistan, which we have given to Pakistan as well, including the United Nations Security Council, including all global bodies. When we gave the proof to Pakistan about 2611, for example, they threw it in the dustbin. They said this is just Indian literature, which is why this time we said we are not giving proof to anybody. We are done with giving proof.
Instead, India has pointed to images of the Pakistani military attending the funerals of those killed in Operation Sindoor as proof of collusion between the establishment and terrorist outfits. Pakistan claims the dead were civilians.
And what we saw, that bizarre image of the funeral where there were terrorists lined up along with members of the Pakistan army, and all of these together with almost what looked like state funerals for these terrorists, that really underlined that there was no distinction between the terrorists and their handlers who belong to the Pakistan army.
I think is as clear a proof as could ever there be that the Pakistani deep state and these terrorist outfits have a deeply symbiotic relationship.
So in the aftermath of Pahalgam, what changed in India-Pakistan tensions? For one, this recent episode showed India's willingness to take a more muscular approach to terror attacks.
ये नया भारत है। ये भारत शांति चाहता है, लेकिन अगर मानवता पर हमला होता है तो ये भारत युद्ध के मोर्चे पर दुश्मन को मिट्टी में मिलाना भी अच्छी तरह जानता है।
What Prime Minister Modi made very clear in his speech was that there was a new normal in dealing with terrorism. Every act of terrorism would be seen as an act of war.
A terrorist attack would invite a conventional response from India, that we would not be deterred by threats of nuclear blackmail, and more importantly, that we will take out terror targets no matter how deep inside Pakistan they exist.
If you do this kind of thing again, any options are in front of us. We are not going to keep quiet. We've had enough.
And while suspensions of the Indus Waters Treaty, trade and travel remain in place, India has made clear it will not engage on these issues at present.
There will be no real engagement except on the issue of terrorism. And until Pakistan dismantles that infrastructure of terrorism, it will continue to be ignored by India. And if there is terrorism, India would react firmly again.
For the longest time, India has tried to de-hyphenate itself from Pakistan. They're a global power, regional power. The Americans caught India, the Europeans caught India. While Pakistan, India will represent as a basket case, right? They live from hand to mouth. The IMF has to give them money every 6 months. We are not the same. We got bigger things to do. We got to deal with China, we're playing with the big boys, we're doing big things in the global order. Every time a conflict like this happens, people in their minds put India and Pakistan on the same pitch, and that doesn't help India.
In the end, will the ceasefire hold? Or will Pahalgam shift the paradigm for India-Pakistan relations in the years to come?
The best hope is that both countries basically find a solution to the Kashmir issues, settle it for good, and open way for peace in the interest of 1.7 billion people in this region.
It's not a tenable ceasefire. There's no permanent peace here. So both states would have to fundamentally shift what they've been doing for 80 years in Kashmir if we want to see a lasting peace.
Look, at the end of the day, we cannot wish away Pakistan. Pakistan is a neighbor, we cannot change geography. So obviously, we want peaceful, cooperative relations with Pakistan, but that is only possible if Pakistan behaves like a normal country and wants to have normal relations with India.
As for Aishanya, widowed in the Pahalgam attack, India's response during Operation Sindoor perhaps offers some cold comfort.
It's a lifetime trauma. All the 26 families, they will go through this every day. Maybe it's something I want to say to myself to make myself feel better, but I still say that these 26 people, Shubham, he was born to start this, to start the end of this terrorism.